This is WFYI News Now. It's March 5th, and I'm Abriana Herron. On today's show, an Indiana college student creates a petition to fight anti-DEI legislation at the Statehouse. Governor Mike Braun signs an executive order to expand paid parental leave for state-employed Hoosiers. And lawmakers file several bills to further restrict abortion access in Indiana.
But I also think that members of the majority know that this is not popular legislation, that Hoosiers absolutely do not want a more strict abortion ban.
Those stories coming up, but first. Leadership at Indianapolis Animal Care Services is unknown after the City County Council stopped a proposal to appoint Kelly Diamond to head the troubled agency. IACS became its own department this year, and since then, Diamond has been at odds with many volunteers who do not support her leadership. Dozens of people attended a recent meeting to testify in opposition to her appointment. In her time at the helm, Diamond has been able to reduce overcrowding at the aging facility with a move to emergency intake. Animal advocates have said this has placed the rescue work on local nonprofits. Mayor Joe Hogsett now needs to make another nomination for a director. As anti-DEI legislation makes its way through the Statehouse, one Indiana college student created a petition to fight back. The online petition was created in opposition of Senate Bill 289, which would ban diversity, equity, and inclusion, or DEI, efforts in state government and public institutions. Purdue University student Jaquan Aikens started the petition, which has garnered over 1,400 signatures from students and community members across the state.
We have to be willing to be voices of opposition to things we don't agree with.
Aikens says the bill will have harmful effects on Indiana students, including a loss of safe spaces and reduced academic support for minority students. He is working to create a coalition of students statewide to continue the fight against the anti-DEI legislation.
It takes time, it takes effort, it takes people, it takes willingness. We have to have the courage to speak out.
Along with risks at the state level, anti-DEI legislation and executive orders have been enacted that threaten federal funding for educational institutions nationally. The bill is now being deliberated in the House. Governor Mike Braun signed an executive order Monday to expand paid parental leave for state-employed Hoosiers. Indiana Public Broadcasting's Tamoria Cunningham reports the order grants workers childbirth recovery leave, regardless of how long they've worked for the state.
Under the new policy, employees can receive up to 6 weeks of paid leave if they give birth, and up to 8 weeks of leave for those who have a cesarean section. Braun says it's important for employers to support the needs of new parents.
These new paid parental leave policies will benefit women recovering from childbirth, their spouses, and the newborns whose health and development will be improved by more time with their parents.
The order also grants all full-time state employees up to 150 hours of new parent leave. For Indiana Public Broadcasting, I'm Tamoria Cunningham.
And for our final story today, lawmakers filed several bills to further restrict abortion access and strengthen reporting requirements in Indiana, which already has a near-total abortion ban. Indiana Public Broadcasting's Abigail Ruman reports reproductive rights advocates say even though the bills didn't move forward, they're concerned lawmakers will continue to pursue the policies in the future.
The bills filed range from requiring the state to release individual terminated pregnancy reports to criminalizing abortion. None of the legislation received a committee hearing in the first half of the legislative session. Haley Boer is with the Planned Parenthood Alliance Advocates. She says it's likely because it's a budget session and lawmakers are focused on other things.
These could resurface next session when it's not a budget year. But I also think that members of the majority know that this is not popular legislation, that Hoosiers absolutely do not want a more strict abortion ban.
Boer says the state is putting people in a position where they will have more children, but she says the legislature is also failing to pass legislation to support children and families in the long run. For Indiana Public Broadcasting, I'm Abigail Ruman.
And that's all for today's episode of WFYI News Now. Our podcast is produced by Drew Daudelin and Zach Bundy. with support from the news team at WFYI and public media journalists across the state. Our news director is Sarah Neal-Estes. Kendall Antron produced our music, and I'm your host, Abriana Herron. If you like today's episode, remember to subscribe and share, and follow WFYI on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and YouTube to check in on our newsroom throughout the day. Thanks for listening. We'll be back tomorrow.